So, all right. So first things, Melissa, I'm going to turn it back over to you to allow you to introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself after you.
Okay. Again, as David said, welcome to our session. My name is Melissa Johnson, and I am the coordinator of the Early Childhood Education Program at Highland Community College. Welcome to my temporary classroom.
All right, very good. So I'm Dr. David Naze. I'm the Vice President of Academic Services and Chief Academic Officer at Highland Community College. Highland Community College, there are two Highland Community Colleges, and so sometimes people get confused. We are the one in Illinois. We are located in Northwest Illinois. It's about 150 miles west of Chicago, and about half an hour from the border of Iowa. So we cover a four county district. So we are a small rural community, or I should say a big community, geographically speaking, as we cover 4 counties, but small in terms of demographics, in terms of our student population. So there are 48 community colleges in Illinois, and we are, I think, about the 4th or 5th smallest. So I've been in this role for 6 months as of today. So I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work with Melissa in various capacities, not so directly just yet, but we have had an opportunity to talk about the early childhood education program. We've had an opportunity to talk about dual credit. My background has been primarily in community college education for the last 15 years in the state of Illinois at 3 different community colleges. But in terms of dual credit, my background is one that focuses on, or that's involved with the state of Illinois. So it's statewide involvement, institutional involvement, regional and national involvement as well. So for example, if you're familiar with Naze, the National Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships, I serve on the advocacy commission for that particular national organization, and I'm the Region 3 representative, which represents a lot of the Midwest area, Midwest part of the country. And then for the last, I'm past president of ILLICEP, which is the Illinois Alliance of Concurrent Enrollment Partnerships. That's the state chapter of NACEP. And I was the founding president and president of that organization from 2015 to 2021. So with that in mind, that's kind of my background in terms of dual credit. But I will tell you that, working with Melissa and the dual credit program here at Highland and the program of early childhood education, I think that you're going to find that this particular model that we have here in Illinois, or here that we have specifically here at Highland, is going to be one that is applicable, and it's going to be familiar, I think, to a lot of you folks who are familiar with dual enrollment or dual credit, depending on what you call it or how it works in your particular state or region. But also, you're going to find that I think that it's replicable. It's a program, it's a model that, while it has some familiarity probably to a lot of folks on this call, it's also something that does have its unique aspects to it, but at the same time, something that can be applicable and replicable in different institutions, whether it's in Illinois or North Carolina or across the entire country. So with that said, I'll probably chime in. I'm going to chime in a little bit during Melissa's presentation, but for the most part, I'm going to let Melissa run the show, as she is the content area expert. She has also been heavily involved with our Early Childhood Education Equity Act that has been mandated by the governor of Illinois here most recently. And we are currently putting the pieces together for a consortium so that our community colleges, 4-year public college and universities, and private college and universities in Illinois are able to collaborate on a consortium. And it certainly has been a little bit of a roller coaster ride. It certainly has its ups and downs at this particular point in time, but Melissa is heavily involved with the faculty group across the state of Illinois in terms of making sure that what the consortium is able to implement statewide for early childhood education is something that is equitable and really allows for the content area experts to make sure that they have a voice in that particular process. So Melissa is able to look at this from the early childhood perspective specifically, but also from the dual credit or dual enrollment aspect as well. So Melissa, with that, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you, David. So one of the things that I've added to my online courses are inspirational quotes and videos at the top of each week before I have the content. So I thought I'd share just a brief clip of my dual credit, my pilot class in action. And it's going to be quite brief because really don't want to subject you to their out of tune singing. So let me. So let me bring it back to my slides. So I'm just curious, what did you observe as you watched this tiny clip? What are some of the things that you observe? What I saw and experienced when I was in the moment is I experienced joy. And obviously, as you can tell from the clip, that was obviously before everything went wonky with COVID-19. In fact, it was actually just 3 months before Illinois went into lockdown. So the objectives that we wanted for our session this morning, and that I hope to demonstrate that how it can be replicable, is we want to identify strategies that can engage and build community partnerships, creating college certificate pathways that lead to degree attainment, and designing a dual credit program that also leads to not only a college certificate, but to an industry recognized credential. And finally, I wanted to touch base on designing competency-based coursework and assignments. Now, when I began at Highland in this position, I'm going to provide a little background. When I was hired, I inherited a program that had dual credit with 2 different career and technical education consortiums. One located in the city where we are in Freeport, and one in the western part of our district, which is located approximately an hour away. As David shared with you, we cover 4 counties. As a part of the dual credit process, I was asked to observe and meet and build relationships with our dual credit teachers. Now, for the ease of for this presentation, the name of the consortium in Freeport is Career Tech, so you'll hear me using the Career Tech name. The class at that time was meeting in the largest high school in our district, which is located here in town. And over the first few years, I became more concerned because the class being offered as dual credit was not addressing or meeting the outcomes of our course, which was dual credited. But I also observed that the teacher was receiving less and less support from the school, and to the point that they even took away her preschool program, and that was a significant part of their curriculum. So this also made it a lot more challenging and for her. And so I made the decision. It was a challenging decision, but I made the decision, and in speaking with my dean, that we remove the dual credit. So after about 1.5 years of Career Tech not having an early childhood program, the director contacted my dean and myself and asked if we could bring back early childhood to Career Tech. She felt very strongly that they needed to have the early childhood as a part of the Career Tech program. After conversations with my dean, and I had a lot of support, I sat down with the director and we began talking about some options. And on our campus, we already have college instructors that are teaching dual credit on campus. So we talked about designing a program so that the students were coming to campus and they would meet with me some days and then be in early childhood environments. I would have different placements for them. And the challenge there was we do not have on our campus, we do not have a child development lab. this, well, Highland never had one. There are colleges that do, but they're becoming less and less just due to colleges and universities not being able to cover the cost. But so this is really the moment where my community partners and my advisory group come in. I'm a part of a network called the Early Childhood Consortium, not to be confused with Consortium that David was talking about. This is in our local community. And we meet monthly. And they also serve as my advisory group. So it includes centers, it includes the preschool, public schools, it includes some family childcare providers. So it's a vast majority of individuals who are part of this and who care about early childhood. And so I put on the agenda that I wanted to talk about career tech and some possible program design. And I wanted them at the table from the very beginning to help me with this design. A lot because I wanted their input and feedback, but I also, honestly, I needed my community partners to be a part of this process. And so that they also would open up the doors, allow my students to do field work with them. And I received overwhelming support, especially when we discussed some ideas that I was contemplating, that I wanted to design the program so that students participating in the program for 2 years would finish the program with both a college certificate and a state industry recognized credential. I also met with individual directors and had one-on-one and had conversations about what this would look like in their programs, because we also need to discuss what some of the individual program protocols were, their requirements. We also needed to talk about photo and video releases, and we'll get to that more in a second, but being able to have photo and video releases for the children. Career Tech is a consortium in which there are 7 high schools that feed into it. With, as I said earlier, there are some districts that are as far away as 30 minutes. So in the planning and the field placement, we also had to take into consideration what students would be taking a bus to campus, what students were driving to campus. Now, I will say the one major hiccup with the program is that the Career Tech time slot is from 7:30 to 9 o'clock in the morning. First of all, we know that's not ideal time for adolescents, but it's also a challenge because it's not the ideal time for students getting experience in the early childhood classroom, because the bulk of true activity usually occurs around 9 or at least after breakfast. And so they weren't going to get that bulk of the learning time, but I take what I can get, and they're getting in the classrooms, they're getting hands-on experience. Now, the other also challenge that it provides is where I can place students. So for example, I am not able to place them in school districts within their preschool programs because they don't start till 8:30. So the early child programs must be full childcare programs that open early in the morning. When possible, I try to place students within their home district so that they don't have to travel to Freeport every day. However, with the schools and the towns involved, there are only 2 towns outside of Freeport that have full childcare programs. And I've been very fortunate in that they have been very open and accepting to my students and continue to be wonderful partners. So now, yes, go ahead, David.
Yeah, you mentioned something I wanted to make sure that you hit on a little bit further, because you mentioned that when you met and you initially had some really strong support, right? So, and yes. I'm just curious for our audience's benefit, if you could maybe just explain a little bit, and you alluded to it a little bit, but the support for the program, did you get the sense that it was kind of always there and it really just kind of took someone like yourself to kind of bring it to the agenda for discussion? Or was it a matter of it wasn't something that they were necessarily interested in, but it was kind of leading them, so to speak, down the right path. I'm just curious if you could provide us a little bit of context for how that support came about, and perhaps why you think there was such strong support for this program to go forward.
Oh, right, absolutely. To be honest, I felt really strong support, and I think part of that is I have very strong relationships. I've been at Highland for 17 years, in this position for 15 and a half, going on 16 years. So I've built a lot of strong relationships with the community partners. So that really helps, I think, to have built that partnership and partnerships. But I think, and so one of the things as I talk about the design of the program itself, and as we were talking about the design, I think that you'll be able to see how this was very also not only benefits the students, it benefits Highland, but it also really benefits the programs, the early childhood programs themselves, because they have more individuals that are qualified for positions that they need if they finish, and that's the key, because they need to finish both years to receive this state industry credential. Did that help?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
So let me preface this next part about saying that my regular college program is late afternoon, evening, and night. And my first semester teaching dual credit, which was 3 years ago now, was the first daytime class that I ever taught. And the average age of my students is approximately 35 to 40 years of age, who are already working in the early childhood field. So I will be honest and say teaching high school felt, even the aspect of teaching high school felt a little refreshing, because they're not going to be set in their ways, but also very daunting for me, since that was absolutely new. I've done all the way teaching. I've had infants, and now I've had adults. So, but this was an age group that was not familiar. And so in teaching, the fact that I'm used to teaching adults who are working full time, often working more than one job, have children, and just have so many other responsibilities, I honestly didn't realize how aggressive my initial design was for the high school students. So I'm sharing with you, this is the initial design, and some of you may be rolling your eyes, and that would tell me that you definitely know that know better than I did when I first started. So my initial design was for year one students. They would complete 2 college courses in one semester. So we would have introduction to early childhood and health, safety, nutrition in the first semester, and then in fall and then in spring we would do child growth and development and assessment in early childhood programs. So that would be year one. And yes, this is all really a part of my lessons learned, because I just didn't take into account or think about the busyness of high school students and everything else. So it was a great challenge for the students to keep up with the work at such an aggressive pace. Now, I do have to say I was really proud of them, because I considered modifying the spring semester before it started and only doing one course. However, I brought it to them. I felt this needed to be a decision, not me just making, but I wanted to get their input and see how they felt about it. And they voted overwhelmingly, after lots of discussion, that they wanted to continue as planned. Of course, if we'd had a crystal ball and could foreseen what was about to happen in March of 2020, I'm not so sure that would have been a decision made by any of us. So in the initial planning, as I stated earlier, it was really important to me that I design it so that students would be eligible for a state industry credential. In Illinois, our professional development system and career lettuce, there we go, is through an agency titled Gateways to Opportunity. And Highland, the Highland Early Childhood Program is a Gateways entitled institution, which means that we had to go through a peer review process and turn in a matrix with all of our courses and where we were going to meet all the Gateways competencies. And so that if a student completes the coursework successfully on our approved matrix, that they will automatically be eligible for a state credential. So that's why when you see in the original design for 2 years, I apologize, I should take it back, there we go, that I actually, our level 2 certificate consists of 18 credit hours, which is why I made this original plan, because students, if they continue on and do it, take the class as year 2 students, they would get curriculum at the curriculum in early child programs and the homeschool community course, as well as practicum. Although I see practicum more as an accumulation over all of the experience they've had in those 2 years. So we created a certificate to a degree path for Highland. So our level 2, as I said, is 18 credit hours. Then, so it's a pathway. So then students then can move on to a level 3 credential certificate, which contains 27 credit hours. And then finally, the associate degree leads to a level 4 credential, and of course, their degree. Our original, so that's really why I designed it as such, with so many courses. Our state credentials, our Illinois state credentials, are tied into the quality and improvement rating scales, the QRIS. Right? And no, I didn't. I turned that around. Sorry. So for early childhood program, so that is then tied to childcare subsidies for early childhood programs. So again, so this is where I lead into telling another reason why I received such strong support from my community partners. Programs were excited because, first of all, there was like a grow your own kind of approach to this. So if we start them in the high school and they're in their early childhood classrooms, and then it would also help them to meet if they successfully complete the program, all the courses in the program, and are able to receive a level 2 credential. That helps our programs meet what they need for their QRIS system, or their standards, that because depending on their level, again, that's tied to subsidy. So if a program is at a quality rating like a bronze, they have to have so many staff that have a level 2, and then it just increases, as well as expectations to have staff with increased credentials. So this is really another big reason that they found this exciting. But after that first year, I did a lot of reflection, and I decided I need to redesign the program. But I did it in a way so that students would still be able to receive a college certificate and be eligible for the level 2 credential. And I did that by creating a new certificate that was approved through the state, that also met the Gateway's approval for the credential, that met all the competencies that fell under the level 2. And so I'll show you the new design in a couple of slides. What I want to address now is the actual coursework design. So myself, as well as the Highland Early Childhood Program itself, have been members of this national organization called Early Edu Alliance for over 6 years now. And hopefully there's time at the end. I'll provide a little bit more detailed information about Early Edu at the end. I'm a great champion for the Alliance. The Early Edu have courses that have been designed by a collaboration of University of Washington and the University of Virginia. And it was initially funded through the Office of Head Start. So again, federal dollars, and that makes it accessible to all of us that are members of the Alliance. The unique way that they design these courses are that they are competency-based courses, and they require video-based observations, assignments, and reflection. So where students would review their videos, reflect on what they watch. And it comes in real handy and very easy to implement when the students are in classrooms as they are. Now, the program itself is designed as a four day a week program. It's Monday through Thursday. Students in year 1 are in class with me 2 days a week. So they're here on campus in my classroom, or in this case, because of COVID, in my temporary classroom. And then they are in early childhood programs the other 2 days a week. So that's my year 1 students. Year 2 students, my original plan was for year 2 students to have that same schedule, only they would be alternate, so that I'm meeting with year 1 students and year 2 students on different days. However, our experience last year during the pandemic changed. I hope kind of changed the thought and the way to go, because of course, like many other of our students, if they're not in the workforce, they did not get any to be in the classrooms due to increased restrictions due to COVID, and licensing had much stricter. So we're not going to talk about year 2. Year 2 was a challenge because the students were not expecting to see my face 4 days a week. They were expecting to be with the children. But so as a result, finally around February last year, or this year, I apologize, the calendar year this year, 2 of my programs opened up to my year 2 students. I had 4 year 2 students. And then like 6 weeks left into the academic year, I had 3 programs open up and say, yes, we'll let you. So they didn't get a lot, but at least they got a taste of being in the classrooms, which I can't even describe how excited they were when they finally got to move on. But this again, so what I'm finding, and I think a lot of dual credit classes are set up the same way, and especially in terms of early childhood, where they're getting the hands-on experiences as well as with as far as, and also getting teaching by the teacher and getting content lessons and everything. So I don't think we're unique in that way. But again, where we are unique is that I have to rely on these other programs, and they have been phenomenal. The other thing that I really like is implementing a lot of community engagement. And so whether it's coming and having guest speakers come here from different programs and try to introduce the students to the wealth of what is our field and different options. I've also had them, so my first year students, when there wasn't all that restriction, they actually took part in a family night for our early intervention program. The requirements that they have to have monthly parent activities. So they took part one night, and they were so enthralled with it, they actually wanted to plan their own. So we collaborated with Child and Family Connections, and they actually planned it. And so we had that community engagement. Again, last year that was all missing due to COVID and restrictions. But what my students came up with, and this again, I was excited that they came up with this idea of their own. They wanted to create, one day we talked about prop boxes, and I brought in some examples of prop boxes. Through our Early Childhood Consortium, our local network group, we have prop boxes that members may check out to use. So I came up with the idea or they came up with the idea, not me. And I got a little bit of funding for it. They actually created a prop box. They came up with a plan. They did all the research for items to go in it. They did the research for the cost and put everything together. And we now have that. And we wanted to get it done fairly quickly and soon, because they really wanted some input from teachers on how they felt like it went, and if there's things that needed to be added or activities that they needed to add. So again, I'm really all about as much community engagement and getting students involved. So like I said, many lessons learned. I said, so the first one was my unrealistic expectations of what I expected the students to be able to do. So I did decrease the design, so they are taking one class per semester. And then the other challenge for me, and I don't know if anyone else has this issue, school issued Chromebooks are a super challenge for us. And I've worked, especially when it comes to having videos or using some, particularly of our early edu courses that we use, the interactive content, because they are not able to do this most of the time. Yes, I try to work with the individual schools and their IT people, but that has been a challenge. So I think for me, like I said, the big challenge over these it's impacted the last 3 academic years is COVID, excuse me, and the challenges that has caused. I am delighted because we are back in classrooms, and so far we're doing well. And I have so many programs that continue to offer and be excited to have our students. I want to share a little bit of success here. First, I guess my new dual credit design. So they're taking Introduction to Early Childhood Education fall semester, their first year, then taking Health and Safety the second year. And I decided with 2-year to keep it with the Child Growth and Development and Homeschool Community, but again, include practicum, because they meet all the course outcomes, as well as the minimum number of hours that are required from that course. I am so excited. I wanted to share some success for my year 2 students. I blame my pilot year students I said, I guess the program felt successful because in my year 2, it doubled in size. Again, as David said, we're small college, so our program is really small. And I was happy I was okay in my pilot year when I started with 12 students. I thought that's good. I'm not going to be overwhelmed being with high schoolers for the first time, teaching high schoolers. But I doubled in size for year 2. And that, done with COVID, that wasn't the best year for it to double. But I'm excited. So I had 4 students from my original 8 my original 12 that came back for year 2. All 4 of those students obtained college certificate, and they also obtained which was the new certificate I created. They also obtained the level 2 credential, the state industry recognized credential. I helped them with the paperwork. That's part of what we did during our class, so we could get that moving. And then the bonus, because the students are in high school and obtaining a Gateways credential, that makes them automatically eligible for the Gateway Scholarship. And this is huge, because normally a person has to be, an individual in the workforce has to be working for, I think they've changed it now to 3 months. It used to be a year, or maybe it's 6 months, but they changed it. But they would have to be working in a placement that long before they can be eligible for the Gateway Scholarship. but as high school students getting credentialed, they're automatically eligible. All 4 of my year 2 students from last year are enrolled this fall, which I find exciting. And all but one of the students were offered and accepted employment upon high school graduation. Only the 4th one didn't. It was just related to her status, her ITIN status, and so are there? Oh, I'm going to wait. I'm going to stop there for a second. David, are there questions?
There are not at this particular point in time. I just put a note in the chat box that I know we're nearing towards the end of the actual presentation itself, so we should have about 10 minutes or so for Q&A or suggestions or comments that anyone from the audience. But as of right now, no.
Okay. So hopefully I didn't talk too fast. I have a tendency to get going and talk quickly. So I'll share a couple of things with you, and if there are questions, please, I know David will pop in and ask. So one of the things, a couple of the initiatives I thought I'd share with you happening, and those of you, if you are early childhood teachers, I highly recommend, and we'll provide our contact information. I wanted to delve into give you a little bit more information about the Early Edu Alliance. Again, this is it is a national alliance, and exciting for me with, for example, most of these, except for a couple of my pictures of my students, all these pictures were from the Early Edu Media Library. Again, they have courses that are designed. Now, the only way you can, I'm going to start with membership is free. And it is still free. We're really excited. It was originally funded through the Office of Head Start. That funding ended, and then they received funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for 3 years. So when that was coming to a close, we were concerned that it was now going to be on a subscription basis, or you had to pay for membership. And magically, we just found out last April or May that it was no longer going to, or it was not going to be subscription based. So they magically found money somewhere. But the Early Edu Alliance is based out of the University of Washington through their Cultivate Learning program. So as a member of Alliance, again, which is free, they've also changed that. So I'm now, as an individual member, versus what we had to do previously was be a member as a higher ed institution. But my favorite part, besides being able to use the only way you can actually implement the courses is to be a part of a college. And I do believe that the dual credit teacher I have in the western part of our district falls under, we consider her as a part of our, of course, part of our college. So she would be also, if she wanted to utilize those courses. But the even more exciting thing that they have that I enjoy is the media library. The media library has over 2,000, 2,500 videos, as well as a little less in terms of photos. But again, these are all free to use. They are ADA compliant, which is really nice. That actually is newer in the process. When they first started, the courses weren't always ADA, or at least the videos were not always ADA compliant, but it is now. And these came in so handy during especially I utilize them anyway, but especially last year when my students could not be in classrooms. At least I was able to use videos. And so they at least got some introduction into what does a classroom look like? What is an early childhood environment like? So that's, and feel free to reach out, and I can introduce you to where you need to go and get you the information if you'd like to be a part of the Alliance as well. And then, as David already alluded to, something new in our legislation, which is the Early Childhood Consortium. And so it is now mandated. I think community colleges get a lot of grief, especially with our Associate of Applied Sciences. And because there's a lot of time, there's a lot of difficulty in transferability to four-year institutions. This has stripped that away. The Early Childhood Consortium bill has stripped that away, because now all public institutions in Illinois are required to take our AAS degrees as a package, and they cannot, students come in with a junior status, and they can't require them to repeat classes, because that's sometimes what we would see. The four-year institutions would say, well, we're not going to accept your assessment class at the community college. They have to take hours. So students were taking a lot of extra classes or repeating, and they would get obviously very frustrated. So, David, anything yet?
Nope, I think we may not be getting any, but I want to make sure that the audience has an opportunity to ask questions. And if you have, I'm glad you brought that, the Early Edu Alliance and the consortium as well. I had mentioned earlier, and Melissa had already kind of alluded to the idea that she alluded to the fact that I alluded to it, that the consortium itself, I sat in, and Melissa too, our very first consortium meeting yesterday for the Equity Act in Illinois. And it's tricky, as Melissa knows, certainly. And, there are concerns amongst the faculty of ECE across the state that the voice of the faculty and the content area experts aren't necessarily being, considered as heavily as perhaps they should be. And so it's tricky in terms of being able to get both the four-year colleges and the community colleges to, kind of row in the same direction, so to speak. So glad that we have Melissa on board, I know, for Highland's representation on that. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, we do have our contact information there as well. And I'm not sure, I believe I know the session is being recorded, and so I know it will be available for, I believe, 90 days afterwards, after the conference. And certainly you can reach out to either Melissa or myself, or both, if you'd like further information or more information, or PowerPoint deck, or whatever the case might be, or just more information specifically related to the legislation or our program as we go from there. But I do want to make sure that, so thank you for everyone for participating, but then also, Melissa, if there's anything, I'll leave it with you to kind of put a bow on this thing. If there's anything else you'd like to share as we wrap up, I'll give you the final word.
I guess the only thing I would say, it's more of a personal observation, that, like I said, so many of you you're used to it. You've done the high school. It was new for me. For me, after so many years of teaching at the college, it has really been a refresher for me, and kind of getting new spirit going, teaching the high school students. I do want to say I didn't think about being pulled into so much drama as is natural with high school students, but I'm excited. I was amazed that I had, even after the year we had last school year, I did have 4 students return for year 2. And so I am excited that they actually did return. I knew we would take a hit in terms of enrollment, because last year just wasn't first of all, it wasn't what they wanted or expected, but it also, we didn't have any opportunity to go out and recruit either. They would have different career fairs set up, and at some point I was able to take, 1 or 2 students who would join me, and they are excellent recruiters, and word of mouth is excellent recruiting. So wish you all the best in the rest of your sessions.
Melissa, thank you so much for your presentation today. And I'm sorry not to jump in sooner. I was having some problems with my Zoom app on my computer.
I apologize. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to just go ahead and
No, you did. You
or-
did great. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now. But yes, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having us.